What is going on, everybody? Bobby Five with Eric G. Tabor. We're going to be going through tonight's Wednesday NBA slate. We've got some big tournaments out there. There's a lot of stuff happening. I kept my play fairly small yesterday, and I unfortunately found a build I loved with Anthony Edwards, as we talked about, who went nuts. So that worked well. The problem was it forced me. I had to decide between Kyrie and what's his name, Champagny, or Anthony Edwards and Johnny Davis. Unfortunately, I chose the Johnny Davis side of it. I couldn't fit everybody in, but still felt like it was just one step off of having a really good night. Loved the Edwards play and the big buy-in. And
how many points did he end up with Edwards?
56.5.
Wow.
And honestly, it could have been more, to be honest with you. But it was more just like, and it was a 5% owned play, and it was enough to make the difference. I just needed the Johnny Davis part to come through, which I can't be too mad about. I really wanted to fade him, but in order to get that, I need to work
it's tough to get those right. You know what I mean? Like when you have all scrubs pretty much, with except for a couple of players, it's just tough, And then everybody kind of got their minutes, and everybody was cursing whatever Baldwin at the half, and even he got there, It's kind of hard. It's kind of hard, those spots, and that.
Absolutely. Yeah. Baldwin had 3 fouls in 2.5 minutes. Johnny Davis was on the court plenty. I can't complain about it. Again, I wanted to fade him once he was starting because I thought the ownership was going to be higher on him, but people are sort of just anti him. So for good reason, apparently.
So
anyway,
it's an interesting slate so far because at least we got Giannis out news like early, which is good.
Yeah.
So we have a chance to stew over it at least a little bit.
We have Giannis out news early, and yet I still think that there's that other game, that Sacramento-Toronto, is going to be sort of like our Houston and.
Well, it's funny. That's what I was going to say. With all these Milwaukee, with Giannis out, I was expecting to see all this Milwaukee stuff near the top of the list, but it's just not. So I guess we'll go over that when we get to it. I can't. So let me, I guess, share my screen, and we'll get after it here.
Same game, yeah. Yeah, I'm a little bit, just real quick, though, about that, and we'll talk about it when the game comes up, but I do feel like they're not quite giving enough of a bump to the Milwaukee guys outside of, like I don't know, I feel like Portis and Crowder, Portis and Crowder make some sense with their projections, but I think Lillard should be a little higher. I think Middleton should probably be higher. Anyway, we'll get into it. Maybe we haven't fully updated the projections there yet. All right, Miami, Cleveland.
I can't imagine this game gets any of my attention.
No, it's just going to be the Q tags, huh?
Yeah, I mean, right now I have a Sam Merrill, whatever, but yeah, I mean, just Q tags. Let me see, who do we got? Actually, I don't have any Q tags this game for Cleveland.
Butler, Bam, and
Miami. Okay, Miami. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, well, sure. The good news is it's a 7:00 game. Literally don't have to worry about it at all.
Yep.
Until the news comes out. But just for fun, we'll take a look. It's just questionable, lower back contusion. Butler, foot, spotted getting up shots.
Yeah.
A Wednesday morning shoot around, which could mean anything. I I imagine he's going to go to Cleveland. He's going to probably try to suit up and play. I mean, I don't know.
He missed the last couple, right?
Yeah. Jovic, questionable, third straight contest. I don't know. So listen, like I said, fortunately it's 7:00 game. We'll know. Still don't imagine me end up playing anybody from this game unless those guys are out. So we'll just see what happens, I guess.
Yeah, I just think he's going to take somebody out probably. I will throw out that it is interesting. Like Miami, we know has always been good defensively. I've always pointed out that they've been good against point guards. But, we just saw, Maxey smash them the other night. I know we haven't gotten what we wanted from Garland every night, but one of Garland or LeVert has pretty much gotten there. And I just think that would be the only, get weird, kind of get different, maybe spend up. Because I think you're going to have a pretty concentrated ownership today between Milwaukee, a little bit of the Detroit, Indiana, and then it's going to be the Sacramento, Toronto games. Congrats. By the way, shout out to our subscriber, Brandman. And he won a bunch of tournaments last night. And want to give him a major shout out. He's very acknowledging of us, very kind to us. And he won another big one. So BMAC on here and Brandman, congratulations.
What sport?
Basketball.
Oh, really?
Yeah. And all first places pretty much. I
see him in the LOL Street sometimes as well.
Yeah, he's been loving everything, loving your projection, loving that stuff. So
that's great. That's
Yeah,
great.
it's great to see. All right, sorry about that. So Indiana and Detroit.
Yeah, so this seems like a pretty pure idea to just play Halliburton and Cade. They're both cheap enough. Play them together and just you hope you have some fun. I think that's perfectly reasonable. They both project pretty well. They both have relatively tame ownership, somewhere between 15 and 20%, at least for now. I think it's totally okay. Pascal Siakam, he looks like a decent play as well. Then you have your values. Then you got the Stanley and Moody at 3,900, and then you have who else do I have here? I don't even have that much. Neesmith, I don't want to play him at 5K. So it looks as though that's it. I mean, you have a Moody at 3,900, but I kind of like the Cade and Tyrese Halliburton idea.
Yeah, I just think it's important to remember, like, these are not good defensive teams. This game total before they met with the league would probably have been even 10 points higher.
Yeah.
I really think this is it's a good spot to attack. So Halliburton and Siakam, I would put look, I think you could definitely play them both in these kind of matchups, but I would probably pick one of those. I think they're both really solid options. Halliburton is my natural lead, even though we haven't seen that ceiling game from him in a while. The Neesmith, O'Connell, all the value stuff, I just feel like we're going to get other stuff that makes it seem a little less interesting later today. But I guess that Neesmith would be the one I would like a little bit. I guess you could make an argument for McConnell too. I don't feel quite as excited about it because I just feel like there's other stuff out there that looks a little bit better. That's the best way to put it. It's frustrating with him because I really am a guy who loves I love the minutes. I love when I know a guy's going to be. So I'm trying to debate what to do with Umedi, however I'm supposed to pronounce it today. I do think Cunningham at this price, but we can't get too upset if he only plays 32 minutes. Like, this is something that we're going to have to keep an eye out for the rest of the season. They are not going to be. They're going to be very delicate with him, and just it's a buyer beware situation. Even though I'm still, in my first build, he was in it today. And then I'd like to know whether Fontecchio is playing, because that would sort of make you Moody even a little better. But that's pretty much the main stuff. And then a guy who's not getting any love this morning is Jalen Duren. I have a feeling some people might get on him, and that projection may change as the day goes on, because as everybody knows out there, when someone else ups their projections, it's miraculously all the sites seem to update their projections. So Jalen Duren is the one I could see getting on board with. I think that's actually like a better play than his current projection is indicating. So I like this game as a potential game to target, even if whether it's Halliburton and Cade, whether it's Siakam with some Duren, whether you're going to play somebody Moody as a value. I think that there's pieces definitely you want to use from this one. All right. And now we go to Sacramento, Toronto, right?
No.
Or you have Milwaukee, Boston?
Yeah. I have
Do you want to possibly wait like a few minutes and then finish with this one, just in case the projections? Because I have a feeling they're not quite updated right. Maybe they are for you. What do you have Portis at?
Portis, I have him at 32.
See, I feel like it should be significantly higher, but I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe this is just what it is. It just seems a little.
Fairness, I'm getting a full 6x projection out of Crowder. I mean, I have him.
But
at
he's
20.
3,300. It was putting up 30 with Giannis. So yeah. Okay, we can cover it. Let's cover it.
I'm getting a full 50 out of Lillard. I think these are.
You've got the 50. Okay, see, I don't have that. Okay.
Yeah, well, that's what I had. Not only that, I mean, they're playing Boston. It's not like it's not an easy game. So anyway, I have right now Jay Crowder at over the 20-point projection at 3,300. He can play a bunch of minutes, like if it works out. Portis is always a good play, but I mean, I guess you got to start with Lillard, right? I mean, he's probably that's what you're supposed to start with Giannis out. Boston, once again, you have all these. You got Jaylen Brown, questionable. What does it say for him? Questionable right ankle sprain. I have no idea. Sam Howard, questionable. Drew Holiday, questionable. Correct me if I'm wrong, but he played for Milwaukee, so I think he would like to play if it's possible.
Yeah, the truth is Boston has 0 to play for.
Yeah.
They're 10 games up. That's pretty amazing, actually. But they're 10 games up on second place. But yeah, I hear you. I just think they're gonna just every day they're gonna be sitting some people.
Yeah. So listen, depending on who they sit, Tatum could certainly be a good play at 9,900 if they have someone else out, or even if he's not out. I don't know. So I do like Tatum somewhat. Tatum and Lillard, that certainly makes some sense. And as far as the value again on Milwaukee goes, like right now, Portis always seems like a good play. And Jay Crowder at 3,300. You'd like to think there's going to, like you said, that there's going to be more somehow. I don't know exactly who it's going to be, though. What other opinions do you have?
Yeah, so I mean, one, I worry about the game. Milwaukee's been getting just crushed with Giannis. I'm not expecting them and they've also done some crushing with him. They play in a lot of blowouts, and it does worry me them going into Boston. However, I do think Boston's going to end up sitting some people at least. Crowder at 3,300 definitely makes sense. Obviously, it can be frustrating to play him at times, but he's 3,300. So I think we kind of have to, bite the bullet a little bit. I don't think you have to play him in every lineup, but I do think he's going to end up finding his way into probably close to half of your lineups as of right now. Bobby Portis is probably the best, like a high upside play, and he and Lillard, but Lillard's obviously more expensive. Middleton is back, which may be why these projections aren't updating aren't looking quite like we've seen them without Giannis so far, because Middleton had been out for a while. So that's something to consider. But I would rank it Crowder, Portis, Lillard. It is interesting to me, though, if people really do, because you have De'Aaron Fox, who's looking really popular, and you have Halliburton. Both those guys are projected to be more owned than Lillard. I just can't picture that being the case. But it's early in the day, so we'll see later on. But that's the way I would rank those three. And if you wanted to get frisky, Patrick Beverley or Malik Beasley, but I don't think that I'm probably going to get down to that. On the Boston side, it really just depends on who plays with the Tatum, with the Brown, Holiday, Hauser's questionable. If like two of those guys were out, I think it would make a big push for Tatum. And as I point out, Derek White certainly has a ceiling, which he just went nuts the other night when we didn't have Drew.
Sure did.
He was nuts, man. So it really depends on who's playing. But as of right now, I have no issue with anybody, but definitely not trying to get to anybody on Boston at the moment. Maybe Tatum by the end of the day. This is a nationally televised game for what it's worth. Obviously, we already don't have Giannis in it, so it's not that relevant. You have to worry about the game staying close. So I like some more clarity on who Boston's got, and I'm curious to see if the projections change a little bit for Milwaukee. But as of right now, those are my guys from Milwaukee, and not getting to Boston. By the time we talk this afternoon, I probably will be getting some Boston if some of those guys are out. All right, now we get to the big one.
Yeah, so now we have Toronto and Sacramento, and I got a whole bunch of value guys here. I just threw them all in here just so I'll remember to talk about all of them. All like 8 of these guys or whatever, all look like good plays. These are just even the values. I'm not even getting I didn't put in Sabonis, but for Toronto, Jordan Nwora, Jonte Porter. These guys all have above 6x projections, even 7x. Grady Dick. I don't even have Obagi in here, but he has a 5.5 point projection. 5.5. Bruce Brown I didn't even put in this lineup. He looks good. Malik Monk, Keegan Murray. I mean, pretty much everybody with a jersey, it seems, on Toronto and Sacramento look pretty good. So who do you play? How do you prioritize this? I mean, as you like to say sometimes, I mean, they all can't get there. So especially when you have Fox, and it's not like Fox and Sabonis are out. You know what I mean? Like they're playing, so they're going to take. They're going to get the majority of the work. So how many of the others can actually get there? I don't know. As far as Toronto goes, as I've mentioned, Porter point per dollar looks good. Nwora point per dollar looks good. I don't know. You have any way to rank all these guys?
Doesn't have any Keon Ellis in their thing?
Yeah, Keon Ellis. He's the point guard too.
Yeah. Okay, sorry.
I'm right here in the lineup here. Yeah.
Oh, gotcha. My bad. Yeah. So I've got it. Fox was my favorite play. I'm starting with Sacramento as I always do. Fox was my favorite. Like before I heard any news, I was going to play De'Aaron Fox no matter what. Today, right? It was just okay. 9K against Toronto. I'm in. If I'm not playing Fox, I'm playing Sabonis. Okay, so that's the way I've got this split up right now. Now, as far as the value goes, with no Kevin Huerter, Keon Ellis has been getting plenty of minutes. There's definitely an opportunity for a Davion Mitchell type of. I don't mean Davion Mitchell tonight. I mean the way Davion Mitchell has let us down in the past, where you get like 10 fantasy points in like 28 minutes or something. That is certainly on the table with Keon Ellis. So I am planning on playing him as of right now. Where he ends up on the priority list still remains to be determined. I like Keegan Murray as my third favorite, along with Ellis, I guess, depending on where your value you're shopping. And I think Malik Monk is right there as well, but I don't want to. I'm okay with Monk and Fox together. But if I had to play some Monk lineups and some Fox lineups and some Sabonis lineups, I think I'd rather play Monk with Sabonis than I would Monk with Fox, just as a logical thing. Because that means, they're running the high screen and roll instead of Foxing him. That's really as simple as that. But I do think you want to get to a couple of these guys on most of your lineups. That's just the way that I have them ranked. So Fox or Sabonis, I have Fox a little ahead. And then I have Monk, who I like along with Murray. But I like Monk better for the upside. And I think that Murray has a more reasonable floor. And then Keon Ellis, who I think will play minutes. But I think that we've seen him be unproductive. On the Toronto side, I've got it ranked pretty much how the value is organized, assuming that the starters go to plan. Nwora, Porter. I actually have, though, personally, Dick, then Bruce Brown ahead of Olynyk, although I like Olynyk next. And I wouldn't quite get to Gary Trent tonight. And I wouldn't quite get to probably Jameis Ramsey or Agbaji. I just would have to wait for a starting lineup before I made that decision. So that's the way I've got it ranked for now. I'll update it with my core a little bit later. And for those of you guys, I know there's been some issues with the SaberSim upload stuff lately. Goldie's projections are now at the very back. They're at the very end. If you scroll to the end after the steals and blocks and turnovers or whatever, then you'll see it and you can move them over. We're getting SaberSim to work on it automatically, but it's probably going to be a couple days before we have that figured out. So just want to throw that out there. All right, Sheets, what do you got with Utah and OKC?
Well, I mean, there's not a lot of spend ups on the slate. We just talked about Sabonis a little bit, and I'm not obviously advocating you play this way, but like you look at all these like values, I just kind of threw in as just to show you like the value guys are. Like right here, all these guys leave 6,500 on the table. Like if you wanted to take out any of these 3,700s and put in like Shea, for example, I mean that's a lineup that you're rooting for Toronto, Sacramento to go to overtime, and then Shea to go off. And I'm not saying to play that way, but this is those types of builds can be pretty easy to get to. And you could replace Jay Crowder or some Milwaukee guys instead of this stuff, but it's a pretty easy way to play. And Shea is in a pretty damn good spot. So I happen to like him a lot. Who else in a good spot? I guess everybody else from Oklahoma City. So Chet Holmgren 7,200. He's not bad. Jalen Williams 6,900. He's not bad. So I like all three of those guys. On Utah, not much. So I find that you play one of those OKC guys just to get some points and get some upside and do whatever, along with the values of some of these other games. I think that's pretty reasonable. And I don't think you need to run like a Utah guy to make that work.
Yeah. So it's interesting because I don't think that. The reason why I tend to play Shea less than the other guys is because I'm willing to embrace a little bit of I'd rather get 3 of the 8 to 9K guys in than the 10-4 guys who, don't really super exceed those values very often. Shea is a good getting you, your 5 or 6X.
So like, for example, like instead of this, like the question I asked you the first day I ever started playing DFS. What's better, a 10K and a 3K or two 6,500s? Like, for example.
Right.
Like, for example, what's better, Shea X or Cade Halliburton or something like that?
Yeah, Shea Monk or Halliburton or Cunningham and Fox.
Yeah.
And for me, the answer today is more of the Cunningham Fox thing.
Yeah.
However, because we don't have natural, like, there is value, and we don't have a ton of spend all the way up plays today, especially now without Giannis. We don't have the Lukas and the Jokic on this slate. So I do think that Shea is definitely a strong play. I do always worry about blowouts with Utah on the road sometimes, and OKC is pretty good in their home court. So I like Shea. I actually think that Chet is an interesting play, and I think that Jalen Williams. I like all three of those guys at least enough to consider them. How much of them I'll end up with, I'm not sure yet. And Utah, I'm just going to point out that Chris Dunn is going to look like a better play on FanDuel where you might need it more. I think that's okay. I actually think, though, if you're going to take a shot here on a weird play, it would be Talen Horton-Tucker. I just think that, like another night where he'd be projected at 20 or 19.8, which Sabersim has him at 3,800, that would be a guy we'd be interested in. We have other better value, but maybe you use him as an addition to value because Talen Horton-Tucker is almost never getting 20. He's getting like 12 or like 35. So maybe you use him as an upside play. That's just throwing that out there. That's more for the $154 max, for $4 that they're running today. And a question here in from D Pope sheets that I want to throw to you, because I think I know the answer for me. But it says, good afternoon. He ran 10 lines, 20 max, made a small profit.
Oh, good.
Late swaps. How can I start adding more of my own takes than just the bare minimum adjustments on SaberSim? And my answer is, tell them how much of the players you want. If you really have a take on that, you can put in the exact minimum. And now look, they might not give you the exact amount, but that is the way I would do it. If you have a take on a player, I wouldn't let something else decide it for me. I would just say I want an X percentage number of that player.
And I go back and forth between doing that, which certainly makes sense, or sometimes just hedging a little bit and just giving the guy I like a couple of points projection. This way, if you give him a couple of points projections and you're still not getting to him, then you probably shouldn't have got to him, because giving a guy like 2 points, depending on what his price is, you know what I mean? Like if you like a guy that's that's 4,600, that's 6K, that's a 34-point projection or 30-point projection, and you give him like 4 points more somehow, and if you're still not getting to him, you probably shouldn't be getting to him. Mm-hmm. But listen, but because that's a pretty sizable increase, But if you give like a guy that's a 60-point projection, extra 4, then you might not get to him anyway. I don't know. So listen, either way or some combination works to do what you want to do. In other words, to get a take as opposed to something else. And again, what you could do also, the anti-take, if you just don't like playing a guy, you can certainly just X him. I mean, I prefer not to, but you certainly could, and that makes your life really easy.
Yeah, absolutely. That's the flip side of that, of my side. Yeah, you absolutely can do that. All right, Memphis and Golden State, or do you have Phoenix?
I had LAC Portland next.
Okay, we'll go that one.
I wanted to mention before I made a note of this is one thing about Cade and Halliburton and Fox and the other guy you just mentioned, another point guard we would consider. All those guys are point guard only eligible, so it becomes it puts an interesting dynamic out there. First of all, and Lillard for that matter, it's gonna reduce all of their ownerships just because you can't play them all. And it's for a reason. I mean, it's hard to, you know what I mean? Like it's hard to have the flexibility. So if you do happen to like one of those guys, I wouldn't worry too much about ownership with those 4 guys because they all look like decent plays in different ways. So I don't think that any of them I don't imagine that any of those 4 I mentioned are going to be particularly jammed.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, makes sense.
Because there are only 3 places you can play guards.
And for what it's worth, in my first build, I played Cade, Fox, and Halliburton.
Yeah, and
lock up my utility spot. And there's almost, I find it very unlikely that my utility spot, unless something changes, is not going to be used by a point guard today.
Okay, there it is.
Yeah, I like those point guards.
So Clippers, Portland. I don't know. Nothing. I mean,
Yeah.
Simon 7,600. I guess looks, reasonable. If someone's out for the Clippers, I guess someone's reasonable. But aside from that, I'm not really getting to much of anything over here.
Yeah, I think Simons and Scoot Henderson are probably the only guys I currently have much interest in this game. Of course, you could always argue for the Clippers, one of the three, but I don't even know how you're picking which one. To be honest, in this matchup, maybe I just think Paul George or Harden a little more than Kawhi in this type of matchup. Again, a game that could not stay close. It's still totally possible. I like, yeah. So I think that Scoot is actually a pretty decent play, but there's just a lot of plays on the slate. So, I don't know if he makes my lineups, and I don't know if Simons does, but I wouldn't mind ending up with either of them. I actually had a build earlier I was playing around with and ended up with Simons as the last piece at shooting guard, and it didn't bother me. I'm not trying to get there, but there's nothing that bothers me here.
I'll tell you something else. I mean, as a matter of fact, I'm looking at the context of the slate. 7:30, 7:30, 8 o'clock, and then a 2-hour break between these last three games. You could make the case, as I look through all of these my sheets and stuff like that. This is like really scary and sick, but I can make the case that I don't like anybody in these last three games.
I think it's fair.
I have a couple, but not that many. And so my analysis of these games is going to be very similar. Like, but let's get to it. I mean, Philly, Phoenix. I mean, I'll just give it another look here. But unless there's some news that's coming that I don't know about, I don't have anything at all in this game. You want to throw another kind of high upside point guard into the fray? I mean, you could play Maxey at what's going to be like 0% ownership, considering he's another point guard only eligible player.
Mm-hmm.
Interesting, by the way, the Simons is actually shooting guard eligible, so that helps him a little.
Yeah, that's what I was saying. I ended up with him at shooting guard because of the way I was building.
Yeah. But aside from that, I mean, I don't have much of anything here.
Yeah, I love Maxey. He fits into that same category for me with all those other guards. If Tobias Harris was out, I think I would probably have him ahead of those other guards, other than Fox. And I think he has the highest. I don't want to say he's the highest upside. I think he has that. Yeah, I guess in a way he does. He'll have the highest usage most likely tonight. You know what I mean, of all these guards, and they're playing a fairly poor defensive team in Phoenix. There is always some blowout risk, but I do think Maxey is the one guy I really I'd like to get a Maxey as my fourth point guard. I can't play the fourth. And I think he's probably a better play than some of those other earlier ones that I might need to revisit, just because if they're going to keep this game close, especially with Tobias being questionable after missing, man, he's going to have some kind of a game, and they've let you do that in Phoenix this year. So I do like Maxey quite a bit.
All right, so here's the deal with the Memphis Golden State game. This is my analysis of this. So on the Memphis side, I'm getting to some Larabia at like 15% of him, maybe some Gregory Jackson, 15% of him. I do see Desmond Bane is back. So I'm getting two of those Memphis guys a little bit. And all the other thing I'll say is this. Okay, so if you didn't like any of those other point guard plays, you're getting Steph Curry at 8,700 against a team that doesn't play defense.
Just to poke back real quick, Memphis they don't play in scoring games though that either. They're like low scoring, trotted out kind of a thing.
All right.
Go ahead.
Well, I'm just saying that, and I'm getting like a couple of percentages of him or whatever. But the reason I bring it up is if in fact he does smash at 3% ownership, it's because they're just better plays. I think you know what I mean. Like it's not like he's gonna. If he does really well, I think about this a lot. Like people, oh my God, how do we let him go off at 5%? Simply because we've already talked about between Lillard with no Giannis right off the bat, and then Cunningham plus Halliburton and the fact you get correlation there, not to mention Fox in the nut matchup against Toronto. And then if you want to get ultra pivoty, you could pivot to freaking Maxey, and then you're still going to try to find a way to play Steph. It's tough. So it's not as if like we're going to miss something. I'm telling you right now that he's Steph Curry. He could smash, and he's going to be low owned. But I just don't know if it's worth the risk to not play one of those other guys. But I am getting a couple of percentage points of him, but that's about it.
Yeah, we make the Steph conversation. I always like to save it for the small slates where he's low owned, just because for him to outscore all those guys just takes one of those games that he really has like 4 or 5 times a year. You know what I mean? He hasn't scored 70 fantasy points, or 60 or more fantasy points since February 3rd. That's a month and a half. Everybody else we mentioned basically has scored 60 like in the last 5 games.
Right.
So it's just hard. I mean, honestly, I prefer Desmond Bane even if they were the same price. I actually really like Desmond Bane tonight, and part of it is that shooting guard eligibility.
Sure.
And if they stay close in this game, you'd imagine he would have something to do with it. One thing they don't measure too, and I think that they haven't caught up with on the projections, is when he plays point guard, his numbers are astronomical. Remember, we had Bane at like 9,500 for a while earlier this year when they had none of the other guards, and that's going to be the case. He's going to be the point guard that is going to have the ball in his hands. And look, if he has one of his nights, he might put up 60. We've seen it plenty of times. So I actually like the Bane play quite a bit, and I like Gregory Jackson and the other guys just fine. But realistically, I think there's more likely to be mostly missing out today for me. Jaren Jackson Jr. can always make a case. You need this game to stay close. Golden State has not been awesome this year in general, nor at home. And the weird part that I'm showing is that Steph Curry is actually getting a lot of ownership, which is, again,
really
8,700 price tag. But
wow.
I don't know if that seems like, I don't know. I'd rather take the other guys personally. But yeah, I could always look like a fool if he makes 11 threes. But I don't know. I want to play the probability thing. So I'm not going to get to the Steph thing as much. I will get to some of the Bane. Yeah, maybe Steph sneaks in a couple lineups as a pivot off of my my other stuff, just because I'll have so much of it. But that's really the only way I'm looking at utilizing him. And I do think that that Bane and Jaren Jackson plays are going to be much lower owned than they're projected for by the time the games start. Maybe not Bane, but Jackson for sure. So keep an eye out for that. And to sum up for me really quick, I have Halliburton, Cade, Crowder, Portis, Lillard, Fox, along with all of the rest of Sacramento, Nwora, along with all of the rest of Toronto, Maxey and Bane that I'm building from, with a little love to Shea, Chet, and Jalen Williams, one of those 3. But that's like sort of like a 16, 18 player pool that I'm going to be working off of for most of my builds today.
I'll finish by addressing D Pope's last question here.
Yeah.
I'll just recite it here. I mean, he's saying jumping in for late for the live show. It looks like having more balanced lineups would be more ideal. Would you suggest capping the salary at, let's say, 49.9, or would you suggest upping min uniques? I am almost, unless it's like a 2-game slate, 3-game slate where I just have some weird reason to do it. I will never cap salaries in NBA. It's just way too projectable a sport. So I'm never going to make it max 49.9. That's never say never, but I wouldn't do that. And as far as upping min uniques, again, same thing. It depends on the level of confidence, I think, in your projections. I wouldn't mind min uniques too. You only play 20 max, so I think min uniques too is probably plenty for 20 max. I'm just curious what to do about the fact that these late games are seem so weak. Should I just I have a part of me wants me to up these projections on these late games a little bit, just because of the late swap possibility. But I don't know. I mean, those other games just seem so much better.
But I think it's an interesting strategy thing to do, because, I mean, one thing is you could always hear about news. The other thing is those guys can all get there anyway. So, and at worst, you end up with a bunch of Memphis, And then you hopefully stay close with Golden State. You make the Steph play. And I think that it's not a bad strategy to take just as a way of counter max entering to what most people do. I like that idea.
Nonetheless, we'll be doing a golf thing at 1, and then we'll be live, 6 or 6:30? 6 o'clock tonight?
Yeah, do you mind if we do it just a tiny bit earlier? Because I've got that call with the...
Oh, I don't mind. I just saw what it was scheduled for. Okay.
Yeah. No, I got you. All right, but anything else before we get out of here?
Nope. You want to do 12:45?
Yeah, let's do that. Perfect.
Okay, sounds good.
All right, good luck, everybody. We'll see